Hey, I'm Evan, head of engineering for RMSTATOR. I have something super cool to show you today that I am super proud of, and I think you're really going to be interested in. This is our brand new RMSTATOR failure detect regulator. I've been testing this for about a year. This regulator has absolutely saved me on a trip already this year, and I'll tell you more about it in a minute. So I'm a big believer in this, and it is great technology. We're really excited to bring to the market. Okay, so how this video is going to go, you know me, I'm not fancy. I whiteboarded all the features here. I'm going to tell you how it works and everything you need to know about it. I run it here on my XR650R that I take on trips, done backcountry discovery routes on, and it is a really nice peace of mind. I run it on my Harley FXR as well, and I will show you how it works on the bike. And then we will also probably show it on the test bench over here to try and show you some of the failure detect modes. So the point of this is to detect failures in your charging system, especially in your stator, but also in the regulator itself, which is a lot less likely. But what is really nice is this has multiple failure modes of problems that can detect and warn you right away, so you don't end up with a dead battery somewhere on the road, which is literally what happened to me. I'll tell you after going over the features. So it also has a built-in voltmeter as well as a display. So you can see right here, we include a plug-and-play harness about 6 feet long, lets you mount it, run the regulator, you know, wherever it mounts on your bike, you can run it all the way up and mount it on your dash, handlebars, whatever. I mount it right here on my handlebars. We have a nice little screen here. It will not light up unless the engine is running, detects input from the stator. So we'll show you in a minute. But it defaults to a voltmeter screen, so it shows you your voltage. It does have a push button here. It has adjustable voltage range. I'll talk about that feature real quick. Sorry, I wrote it down here. Adjustable voltage regulation point. So the screen defaults to the voltmeter when it is running. Once it detects input from the stator, within a few seconds, the screen lights up, shows you battery voltage. You can change the regulation point. So set the point that the regulator stops charging at, and you can see I kind of drew a little diagram there. Anywhere from 14 volts to 15 volts, a single button press will add a little dot in a vertical row, and we'll show you what the voltage is. Each one will cycle between those, as you see there, and then once you hit 15, one more press will bring you back down to 14 volts. So it's nice if you need to customize that. I run mine set at about 14.8 on both my Harley and the Honda here, but you can set it where you'd like. So nice feature. Very easy to mount with double-sided tape, Velcro, whatever you'd like, and mount it anywhere you would like. Has a nice RMSTATOR logo on the display. The regulator housing is in a very common housing size for a series regulator that lots and lots of bikes use. So it will fit on just about anything. Many bikes and applications. You can use this on ATVs, snowmobiles, you name it. It will be a direct fit for it. It has slotted mounting holes so it can fit lots of different sizes of cases, as well as very standardized, the Furukawa regulator connectors that are used on tons of regulators these days. They're standardized with gray being the stator input, black being the battery output, inner terminals positive, outer terminals negative. We will include opposite mating connectors so you can convert your bike or vehicle over if you didn't have these connectors. So everything you need to install, again, plug and play on lots of stuff, but you can adapt it to anything. Okay. So pretty easy install. I'll show you on this bike how I did it in a minute. Few things. It's meant to detect using an 18-pole stator and a 3-wire stator. So for the detection features to be right, that has to be true. That covers most modern bikes, ATVs, snowmobiles, watercraft, like you name it out there. That's the typical stator charging or designed for battery charging stator. So not likely to be a problem, but keep in mind the detection functions are based on that 18-pole and 3-phase stator. So it's going to fit just about everybody out there, but needs to be that type. So if you had a 2-wire stator, single phase, if you had, you know, a small dirt bike stator, there's lots of types that the detection functions will not work correctly with. So make sure you think about that. Okay, so for detection to start, you got to have the engine running. The screen will light up to tell you battery voltage. Engine speed needs to be between 850 and 5,000 RPM. So it's not that the regulator doesn't work over that speed, but the detection functions are tailored in that range, 850 to 5,000. And that's over that, the frequency, the voltage is too high. You have such a, trying to think how to explain it. Your charging system, your flywheel spinning too fast. It can't accurately detect failures beyond that. Now, I know you're thinking like, oh, I got a sport bike at 16,000 RPM. Okay, fine. But you're not riding at that kind of RPM all the time. When you bring back down to idle, it will do a check. So it's not really, that sounds like a small range, totally reasonable, and it's the way this technology works. Charging system needs to have a load on it, which it pretty much always does, but you have to be pulling some current out of the regulator. If your ignition system's running, your headlight's on, you're pulling a load, it's going to be detecting. Okay, once all that's true, it's going to be checking for a failure every 3 minutes. So it's got a cycle that it will check between. So you can't expect an instant detection from let's say a stator failure. It's not going to immediately warn you. It will be at the next sampling of the stator input to tell you if there's a failure. Again, while you're riding, if you had a stator short, stator failure, you've got 30, 40, 50 minutes, who knows, before your battery dies. A 3-minute segment between checks is not a problem. But I want people to know that. Don't think you could test this by instantly shorting your stator and getting a failure notification right away. Depends on those 3-minute cycles when it does a check, okay? Here's the failures this thing can detect, and this is super cool. We can detect a short in the windings, which would be an unbalanced phase. So that would mean one set of the stator or multiple sets of the stator windings have developed a short between the copper wire, and that's going to unbalance the voltage between one phase of charging versus the others. This can detect that and will notify you. That's a very common stator failure, and it will notify you that with a check warning, and we'll talk about the warnings in a minute, but it will notify you of that type of failure. It will also notify you of a short to ground. So if one of your stator windings burns up or develops a short that touches the metal core of the stator, we call that a short to ground, it will detect that. So those are your common stator failure modes. This will detect those and notify you of. Now, a quick story, that's exactly how this saved me. I was on my Harley, my old FXR, riding down to Baja, Mexico with some friends. I was rolling into San Felipe after a long day of riding. I was by myself at this point and stopped to get gas in San Felipe after a long stretch in the desert. And I was running this on my FXR, and this guy pops up, starts telling me check gen, giving me the warning saying it's basically stator failure. So I was getting the beeping, flashing light, and a check warning on the screen. And I realized, like, uh-oh, I better check this. So I pulled out my multimeter. I carry my tools with me. And you better believe it, I had a short to ground in my stator. My stator had actually failed, shorted to ground. And I had another 50 miles I was going south of there, and I would have been stuck in the desert, unknown that my charging system had failed. I absolutely would have been stuck in a really bad situation with no easy way out. This thing saved me. I'm a huge believer, running this on all my bikes now for long trips. It is very good. Okay. Other failure types. It will detect a high regulator case temperature. So if it gets too hot, 105C, this could be a regulator failure inside, or it could be the environment. It's mounted in a place that is just getting extremely hot. Either way, the temperature of the case could be a predictor of failure of the electronics inside. So it's going to notify you of that. Good to know. This is probably pretty rare failure mode. I've never seen this come up in all my testing, but nice to know that it will detect. We have a low voltage detection. Now this could be a stator failure or the regulator inside. So it has stopped charging. That's usually a failure of the rectifier function inside. Or more likely it's going to be the stator itself failing. So you could get a check warning for low voltage, and then we get a check warning for over voltage. Now that's almost always a regulator failure. The range is 16 volts. So if we see a voltage above 16 volts, is going to be notifying you of an over voltage. That means the regulation circuit is having a problem. It's a problem with the regulator, but it will notify you, and you'll know that you could be damaging electronics on the vehicle. Oh, and I forgot to note, low voltage cutoff is 12 volts. So below that is where it will notify you. And then the notification types, like I said, we'll show you some on the bench. We get a beep, beeping, flashing light, and it will say check on the screen. I noticed this failure on my Harley, which is loud with, loud pipes, and I was, in a loud environment, and I had no problem noticing the failure warning. So it really works. It can save you. It is awesome. And then I don't think I talked about it, but the type of regulator, this is a series regulator technology. So we use this for lots of bikes that have kind of known for stator failures, stator problems. A series type can lower winding temps in the stator, and they run very cool. So it's a great technology to use, especially in this smaller housing, to make it really adaptable to different vehicles. And it's rated for 50 amps. So it will fit tons of vehicles out there. It's a great fit, great match for just about anything. So that's kind of the overview, the crash course. I hope you like the features. Now let's look at it on the bike, and then we'll look at it on the test bench. All right, so now we're over here at the XR. I warmed it up for a minute. It's a little cold-blooded. I do have an old electric start kit on this, so I can fire it up here. So now we'll watch what happens. Like I said, display is off when it is not running. I'm going to start the motor, and then you'll see it's going to read 0 for a few seconds, and then it'll come on with the volt display. Right on, there we go. Okay, it takes a few seconds and it will come on. Now I know we'll probably get some, maybe hard to see since, oh no, looks all right. Okay, so here we go. So we're getting our voltmeter right there. You can see the screen as it refreshes sometimes. Now I'm not hitting my max charging voltage here. I have kind of a discharged battery here on the XR. I haven't run it for a while. And for those of you familiar with XRs, this is running our 3-phase conversion. So I am running an 18-pole 3-phase stator in this bike. This runs our full DC conversion. Let's give it a few revs, see if we can get the voltage up, so I can show you the adjustable regulation point. So we'll be measuring battery voltage. These dots on the right side, like I mentioned, show you your adjustable point for voltage regulation. So if I push it, you see I just added 1 dot to the top. It would now allow max regulation. If I push it again, we're going to drop down to the bottom, which would set the regulation point at 14 volts. Now, like I said, with a discharged battery here, I'll be able to demonstrate on the test bench there a little easier. But it's hard to see because I'm not reaching max regulation point with this discharged battery. But that's how we adjust it. Very simple. Just press the button, cycle through the regulation points, and your screen will be showing you constant voltmeter display. Now, it's kind of hard to generate a failure on the bike here right now, so we're going to go to the test bench just to show you some of the failure modes. All right, here we are over at our test bench. I can demonstrate a little better some of the failure modes and the voltage adjustment. So we have our stator right here. This is a Can-Am Maverick stator and flywheel. We have it hooked up here to our voltage regulator and then over to our battery right there. All right, and I have some loads on the battery. So we're going to go ahead and fire the bench up. So you can see as soon as it starts spinning, try and talk loud, make sure you can hear me over this. As soon as it starts spinning, the screen will come on. Now you can see we're in voltmeter mode. Don't have any failures. So I'm at the lowest adjustment range. You can see 1 dot there. We're at about 14 volts. We'll push the button and we'll step up through the adjustment ranges and watch the voltage climb. And it won't be instantaneous. It'll take a minute for it to settle at the regulation point. $14.5, $14.7. Now again, a lot of this can vary based on RPM of the motor, battery condition, so don't get too hung up on the voltage being exactly perfect and stable, but you can see us cycling through the whole range. There's the high end, 15 volts. Hit it again, it'll drop back down. You can hear the sound of the stator over there as the regulation point changes. I'm going to set it back to the middle where I run it, usually right about there. Okay, right on. So that is our voltmeter function and then our adjustable voltage regulation set point function. So I'm going to cut the clip here and I'll be right back when I am at a failure mode. We're going to show a stator short to ground failure. Okay, let's take a look at a short to ground in the stator failure. So we're going to go ahead, turn on our test bench here, start measuring battery voltage. There we go. Now, the blue wire right there is connected to battery negative and to the metal frame of our test bench. The yellow wire here is connected to one set of our stator windings, and we are going to connect it to ground to simulate shorting out the stator windings. We can see a spark there, and we'll hear it in the stator. Now, if we watch the display, it'll come around to its next failure detect period, and we should see it tell us to check gen, saying that there is a stator failure, or check generator. There we go. So the screen is showing us check gen for check generator, check stator. And then we'll start getting a red warning light and a beep as well to notify us. Right on. Okay, let's take a look at another failure. All right, let's take a look at a low voltage detection. I'm gonna bring it up to speed here. See it start measuring voltage. Okay, now I'm going to turn a bunch of switches here, which will put a load on our battery. So we can see up there, these blue lights are showing the load that I have turned on. That's gonna start pulling a lot of current out of our battery. That's a very powerful stator, so I'm gonna slow the speed down to let the voltage drop. When we get below 12 volts, we will get a low volt warning on our display. Slow it down here. Voltage will keep dropping. There we go. So below 12 volts, we get BAT LV, or battery low voltage warning. And then we will start getting our beep and red light as well. There we go. So that's our failure to detect for low voltage. Let's take a look at another one. All right, let's take a look at another failure. This would be a overheat or high temperature failure. So we've got it up and running here. Seeing that we're charging just fine. And I'm gonna go ahead and put my heat gun on the regulator housing here to get it hot. Now, this might take a minute, so we might cut part of this, but let's watch the regulator display, and when we get a temperature failure problem, it's going to notify us of the detection. There we go. So it has just tripped the temperature failure detect. You can see it says check regulator. And we'll start getting our warning light notifying us. I'll go ahead and take my heat gun off of there. Once it cools down, that will go away. But that will show you a failure mode to detect if the regulator itself is overheating. All right, thanks for checking out the new RMSTATOR failure detect voltage regulator. You can get it at rmstator.com, and make sure you like, subscribe, and ask us any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.